He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a villain. He was something in between, confusing, brilliant, dangerous. And now, he's dead. Commander Lawrence, one of Gilead's most mysterious and unpredictable figures, met his end in Season 6, Episode 9, but to understand why his death hit so hard, we have to look back at who he truly was, what he built, what he lost, and what he tried to fix too late. Commander Joseph Lawrence was never like the others. While the rest of Gilead's leadership seemed proud of their cruelty and strict control, Lawrence was always different. He wasn't a man who shouted or punished just to show power. He was quiet, sharp, and always calculating. But make no mistake, he was one of the minds behind Gilead. He helped design the entire system. That's what makes his character so complex. He didn't just live in Gilead. He helped create it. Before Gilead, Joseph was an economist. He used numbers to build solutions. After the collapse of the U.S. government, he used that same logic to help shape Gilead's cruel new world. He believed it would bring order back to a broken society. But soon he saw the cost of that order: the public hangings, the forced pregnancies, the loss of human dignity. His wife Eleanor couldn't take it. She suffered emotionally, mentally, and eventually took her own life. This shattered Lawrence. It was the first real sign that maybe he regretted what he'd done. When June Osborne entered his home, the story changed again. At first he kept his distance, treated her like a burden, but over time we saw something else: guilt. Lawrence didn't try to escape his role. Instead, he began to help June in small, clever ways. He helped smuggle children out of Gilead. He offered her choices no other commander would. It wasn't just about kindness. It was about trying to make up for what he helped create. Even then, he never fully joined the resistance. He didn't claim to be a hero. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Instead, he worked from the inside, trying to change Gilead in his own way. That's how New Bethlehem was born. His bold but risky plan to let handmaids and refugees live freer lives, still inside Gilead, but away from the harshest laws. It was a plan full of contradictions, just like him. Lawrence's life was always a battle between what he had done and what he wanted to fix. That's why his death feels so heavy. It's not just the end of a character. It's the end of a deeply flawed man who knew exactly what he was and tried too late to be something better. You could almost feel it coming, not with loud warnings or threats, but in the silence between his words. Commander Lawrence was a man carrying many ghosts, and by the time we reached Season 6, Episode 9, the weight of those ghosts had finally caught up with him. From the very start of Season 6, something about Lawrence felt different. He moved slower, he spoke less. His usual sharp humor, that dry sarcasm that masked his guilt, started to fade. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't just tired. He was broken. Lawrence had spent years trying to walk a line no one else dared to, staying inside the system while trying to fix it from within. But the system was always stronger. The warning signs were all there. His plan for New Bethlehem, a place where families could live freely within Gilead, was falling apart. The other commanders didn't believe in it. Most thought it was too soft, too dangerous, a threat to their control. But Lawrence believed in it because it was the only thing left he could believe in. It was the last piece of good he thought he could do. Watching it crumble wasn't just a political failure, it was personal. It was like watching the last piece of Eleanor disappear all over again. And then there was June. Their relationship was never simple. She didn't trust him. He didn't expect her to. But they understood each other. They were both people who had done terrible things and were trying to survive the ruins of their choices. Lawrence saw June as a mirror, someone who had lost too much but still fought back. But as June pulled away from diplomacy and leaned more into resistance, Lawrence knew he was running out of allies. And time. Episode by episode, his world became smaller. His plans were blocked. His influence dropped. Other commanders stopped listening. He wasn't feared anymore. And in Gilead, when you're no longer feared, you're already halfway to being erased. The build-up to Lawrence's death wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, lonely. You could feel it in every unfinished sentence, in every room he stood in alone. He wasn't killed in a blaze of rebellion. He was slowly, silently pushed to the edge by a regime he built, by people he once commanded, and by the guilt he could never outrun. It wasn't the kind of death you expect from a man who helped build an empire. No grand speeches, no final stand, just stillness, just silence. And yet somehow it said everything. The scene begins in the most ordinary way. Commander Lawrence alone in his study. The same room where he planned New Bethlehem, where he argued with June, where he mourned Eleanor. It's dimly lit, filled with books and shadows. The silence isn't peaceful. It feels heavy, like something's waiting just outside the door. He pours a drink. He doesn't raise it in a toast, he just stares at it. His hands tremble slightly, something we've never seen from him before. For once, the man who always had a plan has none. There are no other commanders in the room. No soldiers, no handmaids. It's just Lawrence and the choices that led him here. He sits, leans back, and listens to a record player softly spinning a classical piece, maybe something he and Eleanor used to love. It's the kind of moment that feels like it was written in grief. A goodbye, wrapped in quiet. Then, it happens. The moment of death isn't loud. It isn't clear. Some fans say it was a stroke. Others believe it was poison, or even a self-inflicted end. The show doesn't tell us. And maybe that's the point. Lawrence's death wasn't meant to answer questions. It was meant to leave us in the same confusion he lived in. A man dying the way he lived, without full truth, without easy answers. The camera doesn't linger on his body. It lingers on the empty chair, on the quiet room, on the untouched drink. The direction here is sharp and intentional. No violence, just absence. The absence of a man who once filled every scene with tension, wit, and moral unease. And now he's just gone. And then there's the reaction. June hears the news, but she doesn't cry. She doesn't smile either. It's not joy. It's not sorrow. It's something deeper, maybe regret, maybe relief, maybe both. Because Lawrence wasn't a monster, but he wasn't innocent. He was the architect of both pain and mercy. And in his death, all those contradictions remain. The music fades, the light shifts, and the story moves on. But something has changed. A key figure is missing, and the silence he left behind. It's louder than any speech he ever gave. Sometimes a man dies, and the world he leaves behind barely notices. But when Commander Lawrence died, the ground beneath Gilead shifted, even if only slightly. Not because he was loved, not because he was feared, but because he mattered, deeply, painfully, and tragically. His death was not just the loss of a character. It was the death of the idea that Gilead could change from the inside. Lawrence believed reform was possible, that even monsters, if they regretted enough, could do one final good thing. But Gilead doesn't reward doubt. It devours it. And with Lawrence gone, that fragile hope, the hope of slow change, of redemption through compromise, died with him. There's a haunting lesson in his end. Lawrence wasn't executed. He wasn't assassinated in some bold political coup. He withered quietly. That's how Gilead kills most of its thinkers, through shame, silence, and isolation. The system he helped design slowly erased him, like it erases anyone who dares question it. In the end, his intellect couldn't save him. His guilt couldn't redeem him. His power couldn't protect him. But emotionally, his death also brings something else. Closure, and not just for him. For June, it's the final chapter in a long, complicated connection. Lawrence was both her enemy and her reluctant ally. She used him, hated him, sometimes even understood him. Now, with him gone, she's free from that tangled relationship. There's no more room for compromise, no more secret meetings. The gray area that Lawrence represented is gone. All that's left is resistance or surrender. His death also reshapes the world of Gilead politically. Without him, New Bethlehem has no shield. The hardline commanders will likely crush any remaining reforms. Power is shifting again, and not in a peaceful direction. The quiet vacuum left by Lawrence could be filled by someone far worse. Or maybe, by someone braver. But above all, what Lawrence's death means is this: guilt alone isn't enough. Regret doesn't undo damage. He knew what he built, and he tried to fix it. But some things can't be fixed. His story reminds us that redemption has a deadline. And Lawrence, he ran out of time. The moment Lawrence died, the internet didn't stay silent. It caught fire, not because it was shocking, not because it was brutal, but because it felt unfinished. Fans weren't just watching a man die, they were watching a question go unanswered. And when The Handmaid's Tale leaves room for mystery, the fandom rushes in to fill the silence with grief, with rage, with theory after theory. Across Reddit threads, Twitter posts, and YouTube comments, one phrase kept coming up. Did he let himself die? Some believe his death was deliberate, that Lawrence, burdened by guilt and haunted by Eleanor's ghost, chose to exit on his own terms. He wasn't murdered, he wasn't overthrown. He simply stopped, gave up, slipped out of Gilead the only way he could. This theory paints him as a tragic figure, someone who knew